So hi everyone, I'm here in my little slice of wonderness. Richard Carlton, it's fmtraining.tv, where every day we're doing great, awesome, amazing FileMaker kind of shenanigans. And today's going to be interesting because we're going to pick up the conversation a little bit on the forkage. So today is going to be installing the Claris server. Notice I didn't say the word FileMaker. That is an F word if you see the F word. So this is the F word. So if you say the word FileMaker, or you have to put $1 in the swear jar, or fork. That's another illegal word, I am sure. Let's talk about how we got to where we are today. So what I want to do is pop up this slideshow right here real quick. I'm going to play this in a window real quick. I'm going to play just this little bit of a slideshow so you understand kind of what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover very in a high-speed way for those of you who missed last Tuesday, or as a reminder of where we are, and then that will kind of tee up what we're doing. So where we are in the world of Claris and the former word FileMaker is that this is the FileMaker platform that we've all loved and used for years. Claris has some simple implementation technology that brings some really super simple capabilities, powerful but simply implemented capabilities to the FileMaker platform. If I click over here, these are powerful capabilities, but simple to introduce. If you haven't seen this conversation, don't remember this, you need to go back and watch last Tuesday. It's really important because this is going to come at you really hard and fast today if you didn't see what we did last Tuesday or remember it. So the idea was that Claris wanted to take all these really great ideas and put them in the FileMaker platform, except that the problem is that if you load these things into FileMaker, you're going to break people's existing solutions. And of course, we want freemium along the way. That's another thing that would cause breakage. So what Claris did in order to roll out these new capabilities and to not break the platform, once again, Claris, one of their North Stars was to not break the existing solutions, was to fork the platform. And so we have this conversation last week. We discussed forking it. It's the idea where you take all of us fork stuff one way or another, especially FileMaker developers. We take a FileMaker file, we close it first, you duplicate the file, and then you have two initially they're identical, but then they're on different tracks, right? So the one goes this way and one goes this way, but they start off by being forked. That's what this is about. So Claris did this two forky thing where they took the FileMaker platform and they essentially duplicated it. And so once again, the idea is that we don't want to break the FileMaker platform, so we have to leave it alone. But we also want to go in there and do some serious surgery to make it better. And so what they're doing here is they forked it. They built the Claris platform. That is, they copy everything over. Initially, those names come across as FileMaker, and then they, of course, for differentiation, right? They basically decide that they're going to rename all those products from FileMaker to Claris. They're going to change the file format. If you don't remember this from last Tuesday, you need to go watch that. And then they basically glue in these extra things that we wanted, right? If that makes sense. So that's kind of where we're at with this. So the conversation today is about Claris Server, which is effectively FileMaker Server. Real quick as a reminder, if you're on this side of the world, I guess I should say this. Let me just remind you that if you have an FMP12 file or application that uses FMP12 files, it won't talk to the side of the platform where they're using the Claris extension. This is a different file format. That way you don't cross-pollinate back and forth. We discussed this at great length on Tuesday as well. So the idea is that for a lot of consultancies, companies like myself, we already had a lot of FileMaker action going on. Now we're going to start to build some servers with Claris on it, and then depending upon which side the customer wants to use today or tomorrow or for the next year or two, that we have servers we can support either way. But you can't use FileMaker Pro over here to log into Claris server. You can't use Claris Pro over here to log on to a FileMaker server. It's kind of an important concept. So the other issue is that we have these limitations, right? And most of the limitations I think are on the to-do list to be fixed, minus the Linux only support item down here at the bottom. So this Linux only support item, this limitation for the time being is going to be kept. So if you have, like for me, it sucks, but I have a Mac server in my office. I use it for my personal FileMaker stuff. I keep that way I can practice with it. I'm not a Linux guy, but Jacob Taylor likes it, which is why he's here today to help us through this conversation. So in the future, when my company in 6 months or 8 months or however long it is in the future, we switch over from FileMaker Platform to the Claris Platform, which is essentially identical with a couple changes in it. On my personal home server, can't be Windows, it can't be Mac, it has to be Linux. And I'm like, well, that sucks. So the idea today is that Jacob Taylor today is going to walk us through the installation of this product here. We demonstrated it for you last week. We're going to walk through the install today, but I wanted to frame this conversation why it's important, right? Let me move forward here to Jacob, well, almost Jacob Taylor. So let's talk about this real quick. When you buy the Claris platform, when you buy the platform, you get two web interfaces that you have to deal with. One web interface is a Claris customer console. And over here is the Claris Connect kind of stuff and also the FileMaker server kind of stuff. So when you buy the Claris platform, you get both platforms together, if that makes sense. We covered this last week. I did not show this last week. If I wanted to see FileMaker server, I would come over here and I would see, hey, what are the, I don't know if it's resources or license, downloads right here. So I'm over here, I press subscription, I come to the downloads, then I'm given all the FileMaker downloads if I want to run that part of the platform. Now that's one web interface. Over here is also where you set up the users who can access it. So we can see that I've set up one of our tech support people, Kevin Wolf, is in here, and my account as well. So this is a 5-pack of Claris bundle platform bundle, Claris, the Claris platform. 5 user pack over here is for testing. So this is the one interface. It does the FileMaker downloads and it does the user management. Then you get this other interface. So this is console.claris.com. This one over here is called platform.claris.com. This is the login for everything else, I guess. It's Claris Studio, as well as the resources here where you can download these products. And then, of course, Jacob got the server running last week, and then he was helping or going back and forth with Wim DeCourt from Soliant, because surprisingly enough, there is no documentation.
They might get some out this week or something. There wasn't when we launched this.
Well, they shipped it 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, they shipped it, and there was no documentation. So there's apparently, okay, so there's no way we can get through today without a little bit of official information. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you can share your screen. And
I'll share mine. We're going to start, it's going to be a fresh boot. We're going to do a 100% live demo. So we're going to start from scratch here. This is RCC's Amazon account. We're going to launch an instance. I'm going to jump through it because I want to show you the full process. We're going to do a launch instance. This is the EC2 area. If you have an RCC, we set up a server for you or something like this. Maybe you've never looked at this interface, but it's in there. We're going to name this Claris server demo. And then we have to customize a few things. So one, we need to do Ubuntu. Just to be clear, like the FileMaker server, not Claris server, like the FileMaker server, Claris server runs on Ubuntu 20.04. That is not the current recommended long-term release, whatever, which is 22.04. It's a year-based time, so that would be 2022, 2020, 04 being April. They date them like that. So these top 2 are the ones that you're going to be picking. They will default you to this year's most recent LTS, stands for long-term support release. You get 10 years of updates. So it's a very stable platform to be running on. 2020 or 2022 doesn't matter so much. But for software support 2004, pick that. There's a couple different options here. The only one you care about is the x86. Verified provider, wonderful.
So we have a comment from Michael on YouTube, I guess. He says that apparently they found a paper walking you through the process in the README for Claris in the server download. I don't know which server download he was talking.
So that would be within the zip.
Well, you can check it, see if it's there, because remember there has been documentation on the FileMaker server download. That's different than the Claris installation, right? Yeah. So See if they
So
put something in there. Installation README English. Let's see.
That is the license.
That's the license. That doesn't matter.
So there's, oh, nice. Yeah. All right. So here's the docs. Everyone, bask in the glory. This is the documentation.
When did this come out?
This is included in the zip that I downloaded.
Yeah, but you didn't have
day.
this last week. We went through this, right? So
no, I just didn't double click on the text file because I didn't. I didn't open.
So there is documentation.
So that doesn't tell you. You have to install.
People are disbelief. This is all you need.
Yeah. Claris.desktop.
This incomplete because I mean
it's very incomplete. It's very incomplete. Yeah. So I can show you if you want. I think I'm going to do it the way I'd intended to.
So incomplete. We'll have to make an edit that this is incomplete. All right, great. You may continue.
Yep. All right. So things that have changed here that are relevant for you all. One, we changed our instance type. It's like a T2 Nano is what it defaults to. It's not enough RAM to run a FileMaker server. Minimum specs are 8 gigs of RAM, and they would prefer you have a quad core. We're not using one here, but it's a demo server, so it's fine. But the 8 gigs of RAM is important. Second, I am picking an existing key pair. If you create a new one, it will give you a file to download. We will use this file actually pre-existing, but it'll be in your downloads folder instead of being where I'm going to use it later. This part doesn't matter too much. You're going to probably pick the defaults on your own Amazon account. And the same thing here. One thing we are eliding with this demo is the security group setup. I have a list of the ports that you'll need to have open on the FileMaker server and where you need to have them open from. Probably we'll just publish my little command doc that I'm going to use for this afterwards so that you guys have something to base on. But the short version is the FileMaker ports, which you might be able to guess, 5003, 80, and 443, which are the web ports basically, and then the FileMaker port. You need SSH to be open, at least to your own IP, because you do have to do at least a couple of commands on the server remotely. And then third, for this demo, we're going to do a remote desktop over the internet, and that requires a port. But if you, for example, are doing this on a machine in your office, like you put Ubuntu on a Mac Mini or something, or whatever, then you'll just be at the desktop console and you'll log in. And so some of this you'll ignore because it has to do with the remote access. But most of the stuff that's directly FileMaker will apply specifically to your system indirectly. So I'm going to leave that. We changed the disk size from the tiny 8 gigabytes that is insufficient to a more generous
So that's
number.
not RAM. That's not RAM. That's the
storage. It's a boot drive. Yep.
A boot drive. So their default for Linux is 8 gigs.
Correct.
Okay.
It'll boot. It won't run FileMaker very well, but it'll boot just fine. And then the other thing that we changed is they default you to GP2 because that works in literally every single global region of Amazon ever. Underline the word all. GP3 is not available in every single region. There's like 1 or 2 or something where it's not, so they don't default to it yet. GP3 is much newer. They're SSDs. The difference is like a first gen SSD versus a maybe 2 years ago SSD.
Well, 2 years ago, one would be multiple gigabytes per second kind of stuff, right? So
yeah, it's much faster.
All right.
So that's about it. We're going to launch. So our summary over here, right? One instance. We don't need.
I have a question. Can you real quick grab me so I can follow along? Can you give me the Claris's README document that Mike found on their? Can you post that somewhere? Because I want to just grab that and I'm going to download it and I'm going to make notes as we go.
To answer David Angel's question, because it's on screen here, only runs Ubuntu 20.04 and only for x86. There is no ARM build, which means if you are trying to run it natively in a container on a Mac, it will not work. You will need to use an x86 or a 64-bit like Intel AMD style.
Okay, I'm making notes on this as we go. So
virtualization thing.
You said Intel only? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Intel platform means Intel, AMD, etc. Technically, it's actually called AMD 64 since AMD was the one that launched it.
Okay.
But
got it.
That's historical details. The key is that you can't run it natively on an M1. That's the short version. So
processors
in Ubuntu. Yeah, in Ubuntu.
I have a question about that real quick. So one of the guys, Dennis Durham, I think that's his name, Dennis, had FileMaker. No, he had the older FileMaker server Linux running on parallels, right? So
Yes.
with so that's okay.
You can do that because you have told Parallels to run x86.
To pretend it's x86. Got it. All right, good.
And it does a translation between the processors and magic happens. And yes. And
I'm making notes here. You keep going. I'm making notes.
Cool.
Claris.
All right. So I'm going to go back to my browser here. So we're going to launch. I want to get this going because it takes a couple seconds for the instance to launch, because there's like two parts of this where we do a tiny bit of waiting. All right. So we're going to grab here.
Claris
this
is
thing's
lying.
probably up. So I'm going to grab. We're going to find out actually is what we're going to do. So we're going to go to terminal.
FileMaker server, no. For Claris server.
For Claris server, yeah.
Yeah, not FileMaker server.
So these are going to be terminal commands. I'm on a Mac. You can do this. You might actually be able to do this on in PowerShell on Windows. I don't know how good their SSH support is and stuff. But in any case, I've got the link will be in here. But there's an alternative, and it's like the up-to-date version of one I used to use back in the day called Putty. So.
Okay, so the question is, so this is why you had to allow the SSH through the security on the Amazon server, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
We ignored the actual process of doing that, but yes, that's why.
And to get this to work, did you have to use that private key pair thing to get this to connect?
We're about to do that.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'm applying all that I've learned from you over the years, and I'm going too damn fast. I'm sorry.
So this is the IP that I just grabbed right over here in the background. This thing launched. I could probably refresh and it'll say, yeah, see there it passed. So it's definitely up and running now, and it's at least accessible like to Amazon, which means the machine is running for some definition of running. I grabbed this IP address over here. This is not a static IP. That would be an elastic IP. We're not filling one in just for the demo, but you can do that if you want to. I know it's called elastic. That means something inside of Amazon, but for your purposes, it's a static IP. So we're going to log in here. It's going to ask me a really cool question that basically means I haven't talked to this server previously. Should we assume it's cool? And the answer is yes. And that's it. So, all right, I'm going to make this bigger so we can see it. So it added, this is a welcome to a Linux server. It does all kinds of stuff, prints out details, all this kind of stuff. We're going to start with, yeah, see, it already has one update can be applied immediately. So the first thing that we always do when we get into a server is we run the updates, and that's this command right here. Sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. The double ampersands means if the first one succeeds, run the second command, otherwise it fails. It's also just a cute and useful way to put everything on one line, basically. And so, we have some updates. Fantastic. We're going to say yes. We're going to get out of the command line about as soon as we can here.
Hey, Mark Johnson, real quick on your Discord, he says you're talking to Limbo about upgrading, blah, blah, blah. Are you upgrading within the FileMaker platform or the Claris platform? Because this came up last week quite a bit. There's not a giant burning need for 95% of the people to jump to the Claris platform.
Oh, he's
demoing it.
He's talking about the split setup like we have, where we have a FileMaker server and then a web server that's separate from that. It's a logistics problem. There's a bigger conversation here, and I'll give the short version of it. Claris is over time making it more difficult in various ways. I'm not going to say what the technical details on that are, but in various ways making it more difficult to host your PHP on the FileMaker server, as people have done for many years now.
Oh yeah, no, we got away from it entirely. Yeah. So.
Yeah, for data API, for custom web publishing, etc., or OData even, right? If you're super new. So that's becoming increasingly difficult over time. It's still quite possible on the Windows. It's not included anymore. It is difficult and hard to maintain on Mac, but still possible. It is not currently possible on Linux, but maybe soon. But again, it's like the short answer is if you're fine right now, chill. But if you're considering an upgrade, there will be some additional work associated with, say, going to 19.5 or a forthcoming version of FileMaker Server, where you'll want to have your PHP that talks to FileMaker, or whatever your website front end stuff is. Maybe it's not PHP. You'll want to have it on a separate machine, and it can talk over LAN. That there's no like latency or super scary considerations with that. They can kind of talk out the back end to each other. There's no real issue with that. It's just that the literal part of having the PHP live on the FileMaker server, inside the FileMaker server, on this like all in one package, is becoming increasingly difficult over time. And for that reason alone is a good reason not to do it that way anymore, to split the machines. You also get some performance benefits because each machine only does the thing that it's supposed to. PHP runs on one machine tuned for that. FileMaker runs on its own machine tuned for that use. So back to this. All of the updates have been installed. Linux does installing and then setting up, which, as you can see, is all done now. We are going to reboot the server, right? So that we get the fresh version of the operating system. Everything's fresh and clean. And then that'll take tops 30 seconds, to be honest. And then we're going to jump back in and get ready for remote access. So.
All right, so pause. I need to pause real quick. There's a couple important conversations here real quick. So unfortunately, we have people who missed last Tuesday. So I'm going to hit this one more time for everyone. So this is really important. So I got Echo, Charlie, Juliet, 53. I just purchased FileMaker Server. Should I look at Claris Server instead? You need, we're not going to cover this now, but I think there's quite a few of you who just kind of like sauntered into this conversation. If you're coming to this conversation today, right now, you need to go back and watch last Tuesday, the Tuesday live stream. It's posted. Margaret will find the link. She'll put it everywhere right now. The issue is that you need to understand that there are two platforms and kind of the moving pieces there. Watch that, right? Because ECJ53 says, hey, should I be using Claris, the Claris platform versus the FileMaker platform? We covered that last Tuesday. That right there, what they did and what their plan is, and the shenanigans thus far are all taken at least a solid hour to go through. So go, please watch that. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that for the moment. I'm going to stop sharing. Jacob, resume.
All right, so we're going to do FileMaker and we're going to do terminal. So we've resumed. You can see I rebooted here. It transferred command back to my computer. I used on this line here, I logged back into the server after it has rebooted while Richard was talking. And now we get our lovely, fresh and clean. Welcome to Ubuntu 20.04.5, right? Patch release. So we're going to do one thing here that's kind of a slug. It's a bunch of stuff combined into one step. That's going to be this right here. So we have a few, so I'll explain them here and I'll read them off. So we have sudo apt install, zip and unzip, right? Like zip files. Ubuntu desktop, that's what it sounds like. Xface is it's a lighter desktop environment than Ubuntu usually comes with. I found it much easier to deal with for the screen sharing stuff that we're going to do here. And then the final thing in the line is Tiger VNC. That is a screen share program basically, but as it says standalone server, it's the server edition and runs on the server. We're going to connect to it. So we'll do that really quick. It'll take a second because this is a chunk of stuff. There's a pile. Yeah, see 2.7 gigs of like messiness. So this is going to run. I'm going to ignore part of this. So let me explain though, because this part's important. So one thing that will be required, and I kind of debated if I should show like messing it up on purpose, basically. But the Ubuntu desktop is it's a package. It drags a bunch of other stuff in, but that's specifically checked for by the Claris server installer. And if you don't have it installed already, like the first time I tried it last week, I tried to, or 2 weeks ago, I guess almost. I tried to just install Claris server directly. Just, hey, why not? Like maybe it worked. Maybe it's like FileMaker server, but rebranded or something. And it has different technical requirements. That's the short version. And so if you don't have Ubuntu desktop installed at the same time as you're running the installer, it will bail. It checks for it and it goes, oh, you don't have this required thing installed, and it throws you out. So you have to know that in advance. Whether you actually use the specific like software package that comes with is a separate conversation. Linux is Linux, it does its own thing. You don't have to worry about it, but you do need that package installed or this stuff won't install. The reason for that, which we will get to as soon as we're connected to the server, is because you're going to sign into the Claris server with your Claris ID. That's how you license it. We don't use the license certificate anymore. That's why they kind of put that requirement on there for it. Basically, you need a desktop environment. That's what they're trying to express to us. And that's because you're going to have to go click stuff in a graphical environment after install, or the server's not going to run. So
I'm looking at their docs. Is it just me or their docs don't even say to install the desktop, or do they?
It doesn't, no. It screams at you if you don't have it, but they don't tell you to install it either. This thing's almost done installing. We're going to do, we're going to do a lightning fast install. There's about 2 more steps. You can see them on my screen here. We're going to customize a couple text files. Again, if you have a actual, like in your office or somewhere where you already have screen share set up with the machine, what we're doing right now is primarily 2 things: eliminating the technical requirement that Claris server has, which is you have to have that Ubuntu desktop installed, whether or not you want it or are going to use it. That one particularly. And then second, I'm setting up this section that's selected here is the screen share configuration so that we can jump into it really fast. So you can see we're at 42% of installing because we installed 2.7 gigabytes of stuff. Also why you don't want an 8 gig boot drive. Yeah, correct. Yeah, David Angel has a good set of ports here. That's a good list. David Angel, I don't know the answer to your other question. Sudo reboot. No, you need to reboot the machine. I don't know if that's in at 6.
Wait. Now this is this still the desktop installing, or is this FileMaker?
It is still the desktop installing. FileMaker doesn't take that long to install. Claris, sorry, Claris server. Claris server does not take that long to install.
Yeah. Okay, you owe me $1.
They're very close.
Ching ching.
Put it in the jar. No, Oregon Dean, it is not the light version. It is both the light and the heavy version at the same time. But Linux by default is slim. Yeah, actually, that's a good comment, Ruben. Because it is, because none of this stuff was installed by default. We have to get a graphical environment, but it comes with like Office software and web browsers and
because I'm looking like LibreOffice. Isn't that Microsoft copy open source thing?
Yes, it is. Yep, absolutely.
So when you install the desktop or this desktop environment, you also get a whole. Hey, I get a question.
You get everything.
Does this become almost a useful computer at this point with this on there?
Yes.
Like from my can I Slack on it, do Office and email and?
Yes.
You can't do FileMaker Pro client though on it, right?
No. I wish that Claris would give that to me, but no.
Don't encourage them. If they're executives here that they could save money doing it that way, they just do it that way. So.
Yep. I think they could take on the European market more effectively if they made a Pro for Linux. This thing's I'm gonna jump on it. So all right, so we're going to jump immediately. I'm going to do one thing here that doesn't make too much sense. What we are enabling here, systems control CTL, set default graphical target. What it means is we're on a Linux server currently, which, as you might imagine, does not automatically boot a graphical environment. So we're telling it to.
So when it starts up, it'll automatically kick over the graphic.
It'll boot it automatically. Yep. And so I'm going to do this. What I am doing right here, and I'm going to copy this, and then you guys can all see it. Is I'm going to set a password for this user. As you might imagine, if you're going to do a remote desktop to log into a user, you want a password to be set. Linux machines that come on Amazon do not use passwords by default. They use that key file. That's your login, but it's difficult to deal. You can't put that into a login box, right? So I'm just going to steal this, and we're going to paste 2 more setup steps. Which is these 2 commands, and we're going to paste. This is the contents. Again, I'm going to post this so you all have it. It's not a file that exists. That's correct. Oh, do I need to make the folder? Let's find out. Let's see if it'll just let me. XY, enter. Oh, no. All right, cool. No. All right, so make directory. .vnc.
This is where you're going to have to update your documentation a little bit.
Yeah, correct. So there we go. Okay, so now it'll let me, and I can paste it. Awesome. X, Y, enter. Basically, I'm going to add Vector VNC. It's VNC configuration. That's VNC is the classic name for screen sharing. Screen
Yeah.
sharing on Mac, RDP on Windows, right? So I'm gonna grab this one, paste that. Here's our configuration. This is what it looks like. So this one turns off a couple settings and then says start the X face instead of the regular desktop environment. The second one is the configure is like startup settings, and then this one is bog standard configuration settings. So how big is the screen? What's the DPI? That's it. So enter, done. All right, I think and then we have to set the settings on those files so they're so that nothing
Those permissions,
complains.
what those are?
Those are permissions, yeah. chmod means change the, I forget what mod stands for actually, but basically change the permissions on the file. U plus X is an old notation. U is user, X is execute. So for the user, which is me, add the execute, which means that certain programs can, again, execute it, which is what it'll do because it's a configuration file. Otherwise, you have read, write, and execute are the three settings. And there's I won't talk about the whole notation for it, but all right, now we're going to reboot, final reboot.
Now, is this the pseudo reboot? Is this what David was talking about, asking which reboot, or was he asking?
Yes.
So when you're rebooting, you're not going to AWS and hitting the power button. You're doing it within the operating.
Yeah, then the server can do it itself.
Assuming it's not crashed. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Well, yeah. In that case, you'd be.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you can end up with some hilarious problems. Crashed usually means the system is so run out of memory that it can't do stuff because doing things requires movement of bits around in the RAM of the system. And if you get to a certain level of overfull, that specific action becomes the challenge, and it's ugly. Short version, it's ugly. Don't find yourself in that position if you can.
Well, it's 8 gigs enough because you have the T3 large, right? For small testing, I guess it's okay, but
yeah, that is the baseline. So T3 large is 8 gigs of RAM. It's a dual core technically. That is the baseline system requirement for the software. Period. We are moving all FileMaker servers. This is Claris server again, but we're moving all of those to larges or bigger for customers that have more seats. Basically, at this point, we're slow rolling that out, but it's our current recommendation. It wasn't strictly speaking necessary previously for older versions of FileMaker. They didn't use that much. Claris has been increasing some of the RAM settings across some of the different processes, and it's to the point where it's not a good fit on 4 gigs of RAM. It just doesn't fit. Maybe it's like 5 gigs or 6 or something. Don't put a little extra on. You'll benefit from the performance. And at this point, it's 2022. The RAM is not that expensive. I bought a new server 2 years ago. I got it used. It came with 256 gigs of RAM. So
that's that one box you parked away in that data center, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yep. Boom. We're back in. We're gonna see if this works because I don't know.
So now we have the
live demo, everybody. Yep. So we're here. I logged back into the server. Yep. And I'm just going to launch VNC server, and we're going to see what happens because I don't know. You will require a password. Oh, well, that was what I thought I said over here. We'll do it, but we'll do it both. We'll do the password the same in both places. Are we good? Dun, dun, dun. Starting application. Looks good. All right. Let's try it. So.
Couldn't you tell that to auto start?
Probably, yeah. I just service enablement on Linux. I'd have to go look it up and figure out how to do that. But I believe the answer to that question is yes.
Because you auto started the desktop, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to ignore this part of it. Links will be included, obviously. We're going to use Tiger VNC on my Mac, which is the same thing. You can use it on Windows as well. It runs on Linux, Mac, Windows, toasters, whatever. All right, I'm gonna make a new terminal. We're logged in over here. We launched the screen share, so it's like it's live up on the server, right? So I'm gonna make a new terminal. We're gonna do SSHI, which means who is my identity. It's file. I should have probably renamed the key so it's not FileMaker server, but what we are doing is we're tunneling to the server. Is it 5901? Yep, and then C N. I'm just copying my command here. L. And then Ubuntu, that's the user. Yes. And the second L is the login. And then the address. And I have to go look that up because I don't remember what it is. All right, we're going to copy this IP. So what we are doing is we are making a tunnel, which is a straw, if you will, a secret handshake between my local computer and the remote virtual server. And we're making the remote desktop port on the remote system appear on my computer, because I typed it is correct. I did type the wrong port in. I typed the wrong port here in. The reason is because if you have my Mac, right, might have screen share enabled on it. Screen share runs on port 5900. And so if I try and put two things on the, it doesn't, they run into each other. So you have to do a different one.
5900 is reserved for VNC. Is that a?
Yep. Okay. As a standard.
Across
yeah, screen share, VNC, whatever. I think only Microsoft is different. So, but at all other platforms, it's basically the same port everywhere. So I get nothing, maybe. Is that working? I don't know. Let's find out. Port 59,000, yes. So we're going to launch over here. Again, the thing I'm ignoring here is installing the VNC viewer. So I'm going to launch it. We're going to do that. We're going to say connect. It's going to ask me for the password. We're going to go over here. I'm going to find the ugly password that I set earlier. Boom. Beautiful. And we are staring at a server. Cool. So this is our desktop environment. We're here. There's your terminal, right? Kind of looks like my little tiny one down here. You have a file browser, and this will look familiar. Welcome to Firefox.
That Claris doesn't like Firefox. They like Chrome, right? But
that's correct. Yeah, they actually so I mentioned if you don't have Ubuntu desktop installed, they yell at you. One of the yells is you should install Chrome, but they don't actually check if you have Chrome installed. And at least as far as I've done, this process works in Firefox. Yes, it did. Awesome. Beautiful. So we're logged in. The reason that we're logged in is because we're going to download the Claris server installer. Yep. So we're going to extract our zip. Thinking. Perfect.
You make this look easy, but I know it's not. So it's like,
Yeah, I'm jumping through like parts of this, but and then I actually don't know. I wonder if we're required to do the command line for the server install or not. I'm gonna be safe and do it on the command line, but
we're back to what their instructions that we're going to use, because this is kind of where their instructions pick up, right?
Yeah. So in general, I'll just put it this way. This is not specific. So as a thing that is not specific to Claris server, in general, on a Linux computer, the deb is that's one of our types of package, software package files. It's like its own zip with special formatting and extra accoutrements and whatever. Generally speaking, you can double click on them and it'll pop up. It'll do all the checking and evaluations and go, yeah, this looks great, and do the software install. We're intentionally going to not do that here, just in case.
Okay. Well, this is where, by the way, in case people are wondering about the Claris documentation, Mike says he had found it and pointed it out to us. This is where their instructions pick up. Okay.
Yeah, right here.
Although these are AWS specific, but damn if that's not the biggest place where people go to put servers together, right?
Yeah. So and it'll be fairly similar, even if AWS isn't your host, right? The firewall interface may be a little different, blah blah blah, stuff like that. But
you have
that's
to
why
do all this basically, yeah. So
yeah, you have to do essentially all of the steps. That's why I wanted to do a from scratch setup. So this is what the actual install looks like, and Claris's expectation of where you are and what you see. So I'm going to hit yes. It's going to install some stuff. I forget if we have to.
But you're doing this from the command line in the VNC. You could have done this
from the remote system.
You could have done it from here, though, right?
Correct.
Either SSH. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. I'm just doing it. This one's prettier. So here's our standard set of questions. You might recognize these from the graphical installers that we've done previously, right? You have to click I accept, and there's like 5 different things that you do. So we're going to say yes, we agree to the terms. We're going to put our username and our password super secure. We're going to set our PIN. We're going to confirm our PIN. And there we go. Those questions are very familiar to anyone who's installed FileMaker Server before. It's just a terminal way to do the same thing.
Okay,
So,
is it stuck on 41 or is it still going? Or what's
no,
it?
we're waiting.
Did we answer that one question from David Angel about source ports?
No,
Okay. 59000 is the source port and 5901 is the remote port. Confused.
correct. But 59,000 is the local port. 5901 is the remote one. We're making a tunnel between the remote 5901 to the local 59,000.
What's 5900? 5,900. Is that anything or is that nothing? So
That's
when we said it was,
regular screen share. It's the first time I ran it, I mistyped and did 5900 instead of 59,000, and so it complained because my local computer has screen sharing
so
turned on.
590. Okay, so 5900 and 5901 are both reserved. 59,000 is arbitrary. You picked it so people wouldn't freak, but you could have picked anything, right?
Yep.
But the 59,000 is an arbitrary number selection. It could have been 513188881, right, David? But
I just added a number to it, or added a zero.
add a
to it,
number,
that's all.
so yeah. That makes sense,
That's it.
David? That's a really, really good question. That right there probably saved people hours of work right there. Good job, Jacob.
So we're up. We have a server. We're going to click.
10 minutes of the show is backstory. Then 40 minutes is you trying to get Ubuntu even to a point where we can use it, Ubuntu.
And then this thing's like 5 minutes.
The last 10 minutes is the FileMaker part, right?
Yep.
Now, to be clear, okay, this is a test question for Oregon Dean. Are you paying attention? Oregon Dean. Name me one major configuration change that we highly recommend you make to a native install of either FileMaker Server or Claris Server. Okay, that's one. What's the one? Peter, if you're jumping in there, what is the default? What does the server do? Default. We want to change it, right? Every FileMaker. Yes, Peter Geens couldn't help himself. Good job, Peter.
Peter got it.
You got an assist.
I mean, one of them.
Yeah. No, that's fine. No, Peter is good. That's correct. I'm glad we didn't have to drag it out. FileMaker Server will auto open files even if they were previously crashed.
We'll jump through this. So we're gonna sign in. This is right. I created this username and password. This is standard as FileMaker Server username and password for the admin console. We're gonna sign in. We're gonna do some interesting things. Richard, have you seen this before?
No, okay, stop. I was typing to Oregon.
That's
okay.
yes.
So what'd you do? You went to what? How did we get here?
I went to the admin console and I hit login. I put my username and password that I created on the command line in, and it went here. And we're signed into Claris Studio already, so it's asking us which team. I'm going to select the team. I suppose there could be multiple here. I don't know how to figure that to generate that potential scenario and see what it would look like, but I assume the list.
I don't think this team stuff's in their instructions here.
The next part of the instructions are on the command line that they send you. They tell you what to do right here. That's it.
Click to launch and have a good day. Okay, nice. Yeah, launch the admin console, log in.
And it would be this thing. Sorry, I didn't show it. It just like on Mac and Windows, they give you a shortcut to the admin console on the desktop. That's what their printed documentation that we pasted around. That's what it has in it. Is click that thing. So.
Well, it assumes a lot. I'll get rid of the green there. Sorry about that. So there we go.
So we're gonna click next. Insufficient privileges. Oh.
Would you log in with the wrong?
There it is.
What'd you do last time? What'd you do?
I probably waited too long.
Oh, it timed out. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna.
And then this is the normal. Yeah, we're gonna use the default one for the moment. But this is the normal Claris FileMaker Server or whatever. Import your SSL or use the default one. You hit save. We're gonna accept the risk.
Accept the risk.
And boom. Fresh Claris server. Done.
So can you just show that one configuration real quick?
So if you want to know that this is we'll say an early product, there's no demo database here. If you want to turn off auto open, which is the big one that we tell everyone to do, you're going to go here. It's the same place as FileMaker Server. Go to the configuration tab, general settings, the top one, toggle it to off. So that's all. You might want to change your server name because it comes up with some Linux Amazon internal name. If you have your own Ubuntu machine, it might be prettier than this, but that's what you get out of Amazon. So
so it starts the database server automatically, but it doesn't open the databases. Okay, great.
correct. Yep. Means you have a control surface, but you don't risk database damage or opening crash files.
Yeah.
Because you could leave everything off, and then you have to go. It's just convenience, because if you turn everything off, you come in and it goes boot database. Well, I'm going to do that anyway because I have to maybe remove databases, or I'm going to do my restoration or whatever. So I ended up with just don't auto open. Just don't.
Yeah.
It's the easiest of the. It messes with the least stuff. Users who aren't super familiar with command line stuff can come in and they still have an admin console and everything to touch and mess around with. Hopefully they know, right? Oh, the files aren't open. Bing, bing, bing. You need to restore from backups. So.
Okay, so quick question. So we went through the installation here. We have not obviously covered configuration of the server with multiple backups and that kind of stuff. That's really kind of a separate conversation. We're not going to cover it today. So what we were going to do is we're going to take the notes that I created here. I'm going to give them to Jacob.
And mine,
he's going to take the notes he created, and then he's going to combine them into a single installation, kind of take the Claris stuff and then add to it, right? Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, all the commands will work from both Mac and Windows. Like I said, I'll put a link in there. You probably will have to use a different command line tool on Windows, but broadly speaking, it's basically the same in both places. So
cool. Well, congratulations on installing and running your very first Claris server.
Mm-hmm.
How to connect using IPv6, David Angel?
Set a DNS up and then connect to it. Put a quad A record in your DNS. So I could do. You want me to demo that? I can demo that.
I don't even. I know what an A record is, and a quad is the old.
Quad A is for IPv6. Yeah, that's the only difference. So here's this. I can't demo it. We don't have IPv6 at this office, so I can show you what to do. This is your public IPv6 address. Everyone can see it's ugly. Yep, that's true. So we're going to go over here. We're going to go to, so the way that you do this, you can do, it'll depend on where your domains are managed and stuff like that. I'm going to do it in Amazon because we have a service domain in Amazon I can do this with. So we're going to create a new record, record type. So we're going to be CS test. Sounds great. Oops, sorry, I forget that's a button up there. So we're not going to do an A. This is IPv6. So we're going to do a quad A. And they see, you can see they're like, oh yeah, here's our little like demo value. There's the real one. We're going to hit create record. And we're done.
Okay.
That's it. So
David says, can he just type the URL? Does he have to set up a DNS?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes and yes. You can do it directly. As always, is the conversation with everything ever with SSL certificates and all other things. You lose if you do not have a DNS attached SSL. You lose authentication. Yes. Your data is still encrypted, yes, but you lose authentication. You can't tell that you can't validate your browser, your whatever, cannot validate that the other thing on the end of the wire that it's talking to is the thing you intend to be talking to. Someone can be standing in between, and because you're not able to validate, you have to do that override like you've seen in Pro. That override is don't authenticate this connection. That's what that dialog means. If you are putting the IPv6 directly in, the IPv6 IP address directly in, you should wrap it in square brackets, I believe. If you have problems, try wrapping it in square brackets. Okay. That's usually what you have to do in user-side software to deal with IPv6. That's kind of how we marked them out as being weird and different from other things. So.
Okay, we do have one good question here. On our local server, we authenticate with Active Directory users and groups. I can't find any reasonable alternative for AWS Ubuntu deployment. I think our best option is putting FMS server on an AWS Mac Mini ? Any suggestions? We don't want to deploy a Windows server for authentication.
I think they're asking about regular FileMaker server, not
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a confused conversation. So one, we're demoing Claris Server today. It does not support Active Directory. That is the end of the sentence. That is expected, I believe, by Claris to be resolved. No due dates. It's on their list of things that they would like to fix. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Now,
Richard
if we're
can
talking about
wax it, but
FileMaker Server, FileMaker Server supports Active Directory.
yes,
right?
it does.
So,
Yeah.
And the question is why you wouldn't. Yeah, there's a
You-
little bit
you-
more there.
If you want to do, so if you want to do Active Directory, it may be possible to do that on Linux. I have never tried it. Most of my clients that do Active Directory, one, they run FileMaker Server on site, and two, on a Windows server.
Correct. 1 and 2.
And at that point, it's easy. All you do is set up what I just said, a Windows server on your, at your office or however you're doing that, even if it's a cloud environment, but the same, it's AD, regular AD, old school AD, Windows Server AD. You join it to the domain, then you have access to the groups. That is, if you can make it that far, simple to configure what you need from that point on the admin console. That's fine. I don't know if it can be done on Linux. That's a separate conversation. I just haven't tried, so I don't know. Separately, if you are considering cloud hosted, I don't mean FileMaker Cloud, but like AWS or Azure or something else, you can use things like Azure AD works great. Google, there's some constraints on that and it's kind of annoying, but can be done. There's also an Amazon login, which is separate from like AWS. It's like actual Amazon accounts.
That's the OAuth support, right? And that is supported in FileMaker Server. It is not OAuth. Again, is just like Active Directory is not support on Claris Server yet.
Yeah.
So once again, if you don't understand what I'm saying, please go back and watch the Tuesday conversation about that stuff.
Yeah. Additionally, in I'll say modern versions, and I mean like the last couple versions basically, of FileMaker Server, they have a custom OAuth provider where if you want to use somebody like Ping or I don't remember all there's a whole industry of those companies. You have to put all the different addresses and keys and it's extensive configuration, but if you're not that person, your IT people will know where to get all of that stuff. Plug it in. You can use arbitrary OAuth identity providers for login to FileMaker Server. So
once again, that is FileMaker Server, not Claris Server.
Correct.
Joppy99 says Active Directory on Linux. You can use ADFS, which is Active Directory Federated Services, period.
Cool.
So
great. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So I guess that's a setup. We don't use Active Directory in the office. We're using Active Directory on the cloud through Azure at RCC. And so as a result of that, I mean, we're all kind of in the same boat where we're kind of stuck with FileMaker Server for the time being until Claris Server supports Active Directory or OAuth custom OAuth, right? Like three different things. So
yeah. Or if they do something wild like open Claris ID to everybody, or I don't know, something cool like that, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't have no idea.
That would be cool. I'm just saying that it would be cool. I don't know. I have no idea if there's anything about that, plans, anything like that. So.
All right, cool. Well, we're going to cut you folks loose today. So that's the end of that. We're going to update the instructions. So we have the update instructions. Thanks to the various mics and the various other people for comments. That was helpful. Very awesome. I will share my screen and we will roll on out of here. Cool. All right, I want to see you. got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!